Welcome to the channel, Farmer with Nick. Thank you so much for joining me here for a custom farm tour on Iowa Plains View. And you can see I'm just at the dealer right now, and I'm going to show you kind of where I put my farm in relation to the starting farm here. And then I'll take you on a tour of everything, kind of explain what I did. And I am kind of right next to town too, so you'll see it's really not a far drive, and should not take us long to get there at all. And here we are. And I'm just going to pull off to the side here, and maybe even in this driveway. So these fine folks kind of go through. There we go. All right. So here we are on Iowa Plains View. And let me just show you where I'm at in relation to the map and everything. So here is Iowa Plains View, and here is your starting farm that they give you. And I went ahead and built something here on field 4. So I'm going to buy that right now. And when I bring you back, you're going to see, and I'll explain this, I built all of this in field 4 going all the way out to this drive. And then I actually kind of squared off this field, but I still own the rest of it kind of going up to this road as well. But then my main house and stuff is right here. So proximity to the shop is very, very close. And I kind of kept that in mind for this build in particular, for friends of the channel that are console players. Just another kind of, place to make it. And then you're, not having to drive really far at all, even if that. And then you can bring all your equipment over. So I'm going to take the build from this into this. So welcome to my custom farm here on Iowa Plains View. So let me hop in the pickup. I'll kind of drive you around here, show you everything, and then I'll also do like a flyover as well and get to everything here. All right, just trying to make my way out with all the people. All right, so now that I'm on my property here, first kind of just do a drive around, tell you little things about this farm in particular, and then give you a little more in-depth aerial view and everything about the equipment. So this, yes, is a farm from scratch. Now I did have a little bit of inspiration, and I think this is interesting with this farm. And this was a couple weeks ago. I actually went to an estate auction, and more particularly a farm auction. But it was also, with everything. So, more or less an estate auction. And I was there and wasn't planning on doing like a custom farm build based on it, but you never know. And I ended up just kind of playing around and really liking the build enough to show you. So I actually purchased the starting farm on this map and the saved game, and then ended up tweaking that, but then deleting things, and then kind of just creating this from scratch, but basing it off of the farm that I went to go to the auction at. So that's why there's a bunch of equipment out, and this is why like some of the barns are arranged the way they are, and it's very, very eerie how close everything is. It's really, really cool how neat it is to the real farm. So if I just jump into the build here first, coming off of the main drive, there is a little cul-de-sac just like this at the main farm. You have your house here, and then it went straight into the cattle barn. And, you know, it's a little bit different than what was there in real life, but that's just based off the mod. And then you had a nice big open field. Now, the animals for this estate auction, you know, this was a farm from a while ago, so you could see where the remnants of, you know, gates were, like here coming in. You could see where old gates were taken down, but you could see this is where they had a cattle pasture. And then as you went down, they had a cool like corral system, which I sort of replicated here, and then that is broken into 2 pens, if you notice that. So really excited and like happy how this turned out. And then you had your main cattle barn here, and then you had some silos, and that kind of looped around to this middle section. And as you can see, I have a bunch of equipment kind of laid out. And honestly, like, this is where it kind of, you know, shocks me a little bit. This is very, very close to exactly how it looked on auction day with all the equipment out. Same with like the exact model numbers on some of them. I mean, everything is not perfect, but that's why there's like so many over here. You go, oh, like, you know, how many side-by-sides or, you know, UTVs do you need to get around with? But this is pretty close to how much they had for, you know, this size of a farm. And then they had a little workshop shed. This one is a horse barn here, and I'll kind of show you that in a little bit. But then it had a old fence pasture back here where you could tell they kept the horses. Then we had a chicken barn here, and then that looped around to, like, this is, you know, mainly their storage barn for all their equipment and tractors, and then a little garden. So really, you know, cool layout. I mean, it's neat, and I know you guys will appreciate how it's based on the real farm and everything. So that's why all the equipment is out as well, because that's the way exactly it was on auction day. So let's kind of drive around. I'll show you some things I added. Starting with this way, we'll come up by the cattle first. So I have a bunch of gates, like the first pasture here. Now, with these pastures and with like the horses, I put in fencing, but the actual pastures of the cattle, and you can see, like, here's a little tuft of grass, and then here's another one. These are actually a mod, and you can put in and then make it look like they're free ranging, but it's these little tufts of grass that kind of outline their pasture. So like here's one, for example, and then I think I have it going, yep, this way, and then it loops up that way. So that's how I kind of built it. And just to kind of show you, I'm in my cattle one here, and it's right here. It's the fenceless pastures mod. So that's it. So I did that with the first one here, and then I also did it with the other two. So I think it turned out really good. And then, like, I have, you know, some little calves in here. This fence was from the barn, actually, and then kept that like as my main milking area. And then I have some calves in there. Then you can come this way, which is really neat. So you can go into the barn if that's what you want. So you can go that way and then go straight, and that'll take you right into that middle area with all the equipment. Or, which I think is really neat, is like I kind of replicated how they would be able to move cattle from this area, and then they could just take them into this pen, You could close up these gates if you wanted, or you could kind of move them all the way down here into this other pen. So 2 large pastures off of the main one and off of the main barn. So really neat. I like how all of this turned out. It kind of reminds me of my Riverbend build in that aspect, but this one is actually based on a real farm and how it turned out. And then you can see like this pen goes all the way down, and if I jump to field 4, you can see, as I said in the beginning, this is all squared off, but then I brought those pastures all the way to the back, and that goes all the way to that back drive. So really happy and pleasantly surprised by this. And like I said, I was actually building on the starting farm, playing around with that, but then decided to come over here and play around with like actually putting this farm auction estate down. But I think it turned out really well. So they have like the little back patio here, have a bunch of little decorations out, and then going this way is a little shop, and I'll just get out quick. So you can park things in here, you can put a little TV in there for you, and then I put a bunch of decorations around, and some of these, yes, are movable decorations. So that was kind of different and interesting, but that was like his little workshop tool area. Alright, and then let's go just kind of back around. We'll come back for the equipment here in a sec. So like I said, the cattle barn is not entirely accurate, but that's based on how the mod is. But the orientation with the doors like this, that is correct. It's just like that longer chute they didn't have on their barn. And then this did loop around. They had some silos back here. They had a freestanding one just like that. And this is actually just a silo extension. And then you have a mixer on this mod for the barn that you could use. Or you have these 2 silos for putting anything. I think they're both multi-fruit. And then this came out back around where you just saw. So if I just do a quick drive here instead of run around, this was all open field, all wheat, by the way. So I closed this in and put woods, rocks, kind of put that forest in there, kind of separated this from the horse pasture, and then this loops all the way back around, like I told you, to the road here. So really kind of neat. And then you have that little opening to get into that corner. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. And then let's loop around here by the next pen. We'll go on the other side of the forest here. And you could take out these woods, but it was pretty heavily wooded. And you could see they used to have, like the original farm had pastures in the back, which are overgrown, but you could see the old fence line. I did put some debris in there. Got to keep it accurate. That's where they were dumping some things. And then I have a couple hay wagons back here. Those are also for auction. And then we have this middle part with all the equipment that they brought out. Now here is another fenceless pasture. So on all of them, if I just go in the build mode just to show you, there's a fenceless pasture for here. You can see like that little tuft of grass, and then it goes all the way down here, but it's actually inside the fence line. And then same thing over here. There's another fenceless pasture. That's how I got the cattle in there without like a double fence. So I did the same thing with the horses. Now with the horses, I kept the feed on the outside, so you would not have to go in to the actual pen. Now I put a gate there on the right, have a little run-in shed, and then I have another gate here next to a horse trailer. So, and I only have 3 horses in here, but it's a huge pasture. You can see that one way in the back. This one's coming up to me. And then another horse over there. So a huge field. And the real farm, this was actually, just a grass field. You could see that they were getting hay off of it still. But then this is accurate. So you would use the back of this and you could pretend that this is where you'd have some horse stalls in here. And obviously I don't have anything or any decorations to simulate that, but that's exactly what they did. So like the back part was a area in the barn for horses, for their stalls, and then the front part was actually like a little wood shop work area. So I chose not to put this in the pasture like I did for the cattle. The cattle, I decided to put it inside. That way, you'd have to drive in there to actually access and feed them. Alright, so let's loop around here. We'll come back to the equipment like I said. Alright, and then this way you have the front of like the workshop barn. And I did place some tools and equipment in there. And then you have a big chicken barn. So there's a little outdoor run. Now theirs on the real farm did not even have an outdoor run. Maybe they did at one point, but honestly theirs was just a big chicken barn, and you could tell it was utilized. So it was like this. They had a bunch of these metal nesting boxes, and it was just like this, all the feeders. So really cool. So I have that already stocked up. And then this is a neat mod how you have your production here of eggs. Oops. Do not want to move the washer. Alright. Alright, so now kind of loop this way just to show you some other decorations. There's our horse trailer, another access point to get into the horse pasture. Have an old combine over there. And then I do have a corn crib. You can kind of see the remnants, so I did place one in, so I'm happy that mod is available. And then I have some other decorations. This is a buying station right there, even though the store is right next to this farm. But I did put a buying station in. And then some other little buying points, fertilizers, fuel, seeds, all that good stuff. And then this did come out to the road here, this drive. Now, if I go back around, like I said, this was a barn that is there. And it was a tall barn, just like this, for all their tractors. This is also the workshop in here. Pretty nice. So you can get a lot in there. And then they have at least 3 bays. So even this modded shed, it works quite well for it. And I have an animal trailer in there because I was kind of playing around. So very, very close to the real one. And then off to the side, they did have a little garden in there. So there we are. And that kind of loops back around to the house. So there you go. Let me jump into the build mode just to show you everything that I purchased. And then I'll go through the equipment really quick, and then we'll do another flyover. Alright, so in the build mode, the first one is the house. So you can find this farmhouse on the Mod Hub. So nothing too crazy, just a simple little ranch, but matches what they kind of had with their little patio. Then here we have a garden, and it's called the open air garden, and there's many variations. This is the smallest one, and their garden was probably around, and it did have little raised beds too, so I was like, wow, that's perfect. And then looping over here, I showed you this is the fenceless pastures. I know it gives me the trigger for the road all the time, but then those fenceless pastures, like I said, I did put my own fence around with gates. And then we have our cow barn here, and this is the cow barn with feeding robot that you can get on the mod hub. And then we have our silos here. See if it gives me the trigger. It might not. Oh, there it is, the multi-fruit silo. And then I had just an extension here next to that. And then this is all the same with the cattle, like you saw. These are just little decoration waters, if you're wondering what those are. So I just placed those in. Same thing, like all these little cattle things are decoration as well. The huts are real. You can use these. There are ones that are decoration, but these lizard huts are real for the calves. You can use those. And then we have our main barn here, just called Farm Barn. And I'm using that as my horse barn. And very similar with the setup, how the doors came out this way. And then just have an open shed here, called Small Shed. And then I have a little water windmill. And then we have our chicken barn, which is called Wooden Chicken Coop. And there's a couple variations on that one. Then we have our corn crib, like I said. There, little buying station there. Some fertilizers, other buying stations, liquid fertilizer, fuel. And these are other like herbicides, seeds, all that good stuff. So right here on the farm, ready to go. And then this one is called the American Midwest Woodshed. And like I said, the real barn also had 3 bays. This one has a little one right here, maybe for like a side-by-side. But yeah, works well. Oh, and then this one, I almost forgot, is just called a vehicle workshop. So pretty cool. All right, and let's look at the equipment. So first up, and this was not a 3020 on the real auction. It was a 5424, but pretty close. And then it did have a huge mowing deck, just like this, with the Batwing kind of blades. So I have that. Next, this is was it a 40? Yeah, 445. They had a 770, but this is the closest I could find, you know, to that. But cool little tractor too, by the way. Kind of neat. So I put the little blade on the front. Then they did have a 4020 there at auction, so that was really cool. And then we have it right in the game. Pretty neat. And now this was not a 4955, but it was very similar. It was a 46 something, but it had the dual tires and basically looks identical with the smaller tires in front too. So really cool to have that. They did have a farm haul for auction as well, and it didn't have the 2 wheels in front. They were spaced out. But yeah, that's so neat to have that here. And then just another mowing deck, some blades here for snow plows. They did have a bigger plow for field work. And like I said, they did have some hay wagons. You can see those out back. A windrower right next to it. And then they had a water tank right there. Now, they did have a service truck as well. And they told the people, if you're going to buy it, do not drive it home, that the brakes were not working. But there it is. So a service truck for the farm. And all of this is very accurate now. And it seems kind of redundant, but they did have a Kubota side by side. They did have a 4-wheeler which wouldn't turn over, but someone still purchased it. They did have another side-by-side, and it was more like a workman one, with the back being, you know, for hauling around things. And then, yes, they had a golf cart at the auction, and they had another mower, and I used the same one, the 445, and I just put the bagger on it. So I was kind of driving it around up there, testing this one. That was pretty fun. And then they had another rider, and not the tractor version, but with the levers. So I bought one of those and put this on the map. Now this one, oops, this other mower is not entirely accurate, but it's the only one I could find that had a mower deck on the front, and then they had like a cab on it, but pretty close, and then a trailer right next to that. So pretty cool to see all this equipment out, and very similar to what I saw a couple weeks ago at that auction. And let me jump into, let's just kind of fly around quick and then call it good. We'll go into flight mode. All right. So I'll give you one last little fly over here, and you can kind of see the farm. So really cool how there's their main entrance here. Then you have your other one right by the house that goes right up to the cattle. And then I placed this one off to the side with the road. And then I like how this build actually, you know, came to this back part of the field too. So you have access. And the real farm did not have side access here to a road, just the front two, not these. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me here on a custom farm build based on a real farm that I saw at auction. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, I'd love to have you tag along if you're new to the channel in particular. And if you're returning, thank you so much for checking this video out of the farm auction / you know, custom build from scratch, really. Just an open wheat field here on Iowa Plains View. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I really like the layout. You know, it's kind of a condensed farm, and as you notice, there is no real equipment for, you know, doing a lot of field work, just kind of grass work, and that's what they were doing mostly, just hay. You can also see, and I forgot to go into this barn, but in this barn, it was just a bunch of, like, you know, equipment for grass work, balers, other things for fertilizing, but yeah, nothing for major field work, so no combines or anything. I just put that other one out there for decoration, but yeah, there you go. So I hope you like the layout, I hope you like the build, and if you're new to the channel, I'd love to have you kind of tag along, let me know what you think, and feel free to check out my other kind of builds and playthrough series here on FS25. So I'll let you guys go there, and like I said, thank you so much for kind of joining me here and checking out this custom farm build on Iowa Plains View. And I love how the proximity is so close to town. Like, you are right there, you can just drive in to the shop and you're all good to go. So hopefully, council players, that gives you like an idea of, you know, something you could build here on this open field in this area here. So thank you again so much for watching, and hope to see you on the next one. Have a good one. Take care.